Hey YouTube, it's Bolt the Dragon here. I decided I was going to do a little care video on how to take care of a Chinese water dragon. First things first is, I know that there's lots of different opinions out there on how to take care of your dragon this way and that way. This is just the way I do it. That doesn't necessarily mean that your way is wrong, but here's just a tip for people who may be wondering about getting one or anything like that. So here's just a few things about them, about what needs to be done when you take care of them. I would say the first thing that needs to be looked at is obviously the setup, the cage setup. These are arboreal lizards, which means they live up in the trees, and they need a lot of space. They grow up the males get about 3 foot long, and the females get up to around 2 foot, 2.5 feet. And they're going to need a large cage to go in. You see, I have a custom built cage here. It's 4 foot by 4 foot. It's about 2 feet deep. And this will be plenty of room to last Bolt his whole life. But you do need to take that in consideration. You have to pretty much get a custom cage because they need to be built vertically. Most cages, like the big 150-gallon tanks and stuff, they're built long ways. So I would first things first is you're probably gonna have to build a custom cage and/or buy a custom cage. Second thing, my cage is not finished yet. My vivarium here. I still have a lot more things that I'm gonna do, but you're gonna want some branches and whatnot to climb on. The substrate I have is coconut bark. It holds humidity pretty well, and it's pretty nice. I have some fake vines and whatnot, leaves, greenery. There's going to be a lot more of this. He has a water source that Bolt can completely submerge himself in. That's something that all water dragons need, is a water source that's big enough for them to completely submerge their bodies in. They love to spend time in the water. I'll find Bolt in there, 3-4 times a day, just soaking his body. And you need to watch out though when you do have their water thing. They need to make sure they can get out of their water easily and whatnot. That way they're just not trapped in there once they get in there, because they will find their water. Another thing is that your water dragon is going to need a heat source. I have 2 bulbs, 100 watts. It keeps the bottom of the tank around 80 degrees, and then the top, more up here on the branches, gets up to 90, 95, 100 degrees. So it has a good gradient from top to bottom, and that's the way it would be in the wild with them. They would climb up higher in the trees and sit up on a branch and bask in the sun during the day, and then they'd find cooler places when their bodies heats up a lot. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is the diet of a Chinese water dragon. They're mostly insectivores, so one thing you really need to be aware of is that you're going to have to feed them insects. I've gotten some questions about people that are scared to touch insects. Well, if you're really scared of insects, this might not be the lizard for you, but you can get used to it. Main staple of diet for Bolt is crickets. He's going to run here in a second. Here, I'll let him go up on his branch. The main thing Bolt eats is crickets, and he also has a supplement of mealworms with that, and he'll get a goldfish every once in a while. And eventually, as he's older, I'll feed him a pinky mouse once in a while, but mainly he eats insects. I feed him every other day. I feed him 5-6 large crickets and maybe a mealworm. And another thing you don't want to forget is that all reptiles need a calcium source. If they don't get enough calcium in their diet, they can't digest their food, and their bones also become very weak. So I supplement the meals with this Reptical. Just sprinkle some on the meal every couple times a week when you feed them, and then that will give them the calcium they need. Another thing I haven't talked about, I talked about the heat lamps, but they also need a UVB source of light, which the UVB light is very important because without it, the dragon cannot digest its food correctly. So you need a source that is giving off enough UVB that the skin will be fine and that it'll help the dragon digest the food. If not, then the dragon can develop a disease called metabolic bone disease, and it can have very brittle bones, and the bones will break, and eventually leading to your water dragon's death. Another mention about the water: you need to make sure that you clean out the water on a daily basis. Otherwise, because Chinese water dragons usually defecate into their water, and so you need to clean that out. That way, that you just don't have, nasty water that they're swimming in. So if you clean that out on a daily basis, and it just keeps them cleaner. And that's another great thing about the animals, that since they poop in their water, it's really easy to clean up. You just empty out the water, refill it, put it back in. You don't have to scoop up poop all over the cage. So that's a good thing. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, humidity. Humidity for a water dragon needs to be above 60%. Between 60 and 80% is ideal. If you have a waterfall or if you have a fog system, that's great, because that really helps humidity. But if you don't, you need to make sure that you miss the cage daily a couple times. I miss my cage 3-4 times a day to try and keep the humidity up above 60. I'm going to have get a waterfall over the summer, and that'll be great, because that'll really help the humidity raise up. Moving water always helps humidity. So other things we're going to do is paint the cage and stuff, but he loves his vivarium. He's been in it for a couple months now, and he just loves it. It's annoying me, he has a little bit of shed left on his toe here, and I've been trying to get at it, but you really shouldn't pick off the skin anyway, so you can damage skin, like I said in other videos. But yeah, you got to watch that. If their shed doesn't come off their toes for a really long time, you need to watch out for that, because that skin that doesn't come off can eventually constrict blood flow to that finger or digit, and eventually that can lead to the toe falling off. And so you got to watch out and make sure the sheds are complete. And Bolt is about 14 inches long, and I'm thinking that it's going to be a male. It looks like his nuclear crest is getting larger, and he's also growing at a pretty fast rate. But it'll still be a while before I can tell if he's a male or female. Let's see, what else? Is there anything else? I think Chinese water dragons are great pets. I recommend them. Maybe not as a first-time lizard, because, like I've said, you have to put money into it with, the cage and then the UV lights and, all kinds of stuff. It does cost a lot of money. Even though the lizard is relatively cheap, you can find them for, $30 at just a regular old Petco or PetSmart. But, yeah, that's about it, and I hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to comment and subscribe.